Welcome to Midnight Fatal Cases. This channel tells real stories about real people, the moments where ordinary lives quietly fracture, and no one notices until it's too late. No spectacle, no rush. Just what happened and what it reveals. Tonight's case begins with a vacation vlog and ends with a disappearance the internet never stopped watching. Let's begin. Narration, Chapter 1. The Hook. The first time anyone realized something was wrong, it wasn't because of a scream or a struggle or a frantic call for help. It was because the video stopped. Not the kind of stop that happens when a creator gets busy or loses interest. Not a slow fade. Not an apology post. Just a clean cut. One day there was a sunset, a laugh, a clink of glasses, a caption full of optimism, and then nothing. For months, her followers had been trained to expect her voice in their headphones every morning. A calm, bright tone, a quick update. A little piece of another life, filmed so closely it felt like friendship. Her name was Maya Kerr, 24, a travel vlogger with a modest but devoted audience, the kind of channel that grew through consistency, not controversy. Her comments were full of small talk and inside jokes. People asked her where she bought her sandals, what lens she used, how she edited her color. Maya always answered. She was the kind of online presence that felt safe, familiar, controlled. And that was what made her disappearance feel at first like a technical issue. On the morning her upload didn't arrive, a few regular viewers posted the usual questions. Did it not go live for anyone else? Maybe the schedule changed? Hope she's okay. By nightfall, those comments had doubled, then tripled, then spread to other platforms. The second day, someone noticed her last active timestamp hadn't moved. The third day, a stranger made a compilation of her recent vacation clips and titled it, in all caps, "Where is Maya?" That was the moment her life stopped being hers, because the vacation had been documented. Every plane window, every hotel corridor, every plate of food, every small laugh in the background, off camera, that viewers began to identify as the voice of her boyfriend. His name was Adrian Cole, late 20s, clean cut, not a public figure. He appeared in Maya's content in the way some people appear in other people's lives, half-framed, half-heard, always just outside the center. But on this trip, Adrian was more visible than usual. They called it their reset vacation, a break from deadlines, from city noise, from the kind of pressure that comes from turning your personality into a product. Maya told her viewers it would be more raw, less polished. And it was. The last week of footage showed her face with no heavy filters, hair damp from sea spray, cheeks flushed from sun. She laughed more. She spoke less like a host and more like a person. It felt intimate. It felt honest. And in hindsight, honesty is the detail that hurts the most, because it convinces you that you would have noticed the danger. The trip began in Lisbon. That was clear from the landmarks and the timestamps on her posts. The tiled facades, the yellow tram, the cafe where she filmed herself tasting espresso and saying, "Okay, this is the best start to a vacation I've ever had." Adrian's hand entered the frame to pass her a napkin. You could hear him say softly, "Don't spill on the mic." Maya rolled her eyes, smiling. "Yes, Dad." People loved that moment. It made them feel like they were there. From Lisbon, they took a short flight to a small island. Not famous, not a place that would immediately trigger recognition in an average viewer. Maya didn't tag the exact location at first, only wrote, "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can breathe." She filmed the arrival. A narrow runway, wind-bending low grass. A bus with faded paint taking them past scrubland and a sleepy harbor. In the vlog, Maya said, "This place feels like it's been waiting for us." Adrian laughed. "That's a weird thing to say." Maya shrugged. "I mean it in a good way." The last video she posted was called Day 3, No Plans. It opened with Maya on a balcony in the early morning, a thin robe wrapped around her shoulders. The sea behind her was gray-blue and calm. Her voice was quiet, like she didn't want to wake the world. "Okay," she whispered. "So, we're doing something different today." She glanced back over her shoulder into the room. Adrian's idea, she said. He found this place on a forum. It's not on Google Maps. It's like a hidden beach. She smiled like that word was a prize. Hidden. It's supposed to be empty, she continued. Just cliffs and water and… Adrian's voice came from inside, casual. And no signal. Maya turned the camera slightly so it caught him in the mirror. He was pulling on a shirt, not looking at the lens. No signal, Maya repeated, amused. Which is the point, I guess. She leaned closer to the microphone. So if I disappear for a few hours, don't panic. She laughed at her own joke. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It wasn't foreshadowing. It was the laugh of someone who still believed disappearing was something you chose. That line would be replayed later, clipped out of context, stitched into conspiracy videos, turned into bait. But in the original upload, it passed like nothing. The vlog continued with quick cuts. A rented scooter humming down a coastal road, Maya's hand on Adrian's waist, camera angled so the viewer could see the curve of the cliffs. A small roadside market, Adrian buying water, Maya filming the vendor's hands as she wrapped fruit in paper. Normal things. Safe things. Then the footage changed. It wasn't dramatic. It was subtle. The light shifted. The cuts got shorter. The camera shook a little more, as if Maya was walking faster than before. At one point, Maya turned the lens toward herself and whispered, "Okay, this is definitely not marked." Like, at all. Behind her, the path was narrow and rocky, with tall grass pressing in from both sides. There were no other people. No signs. No trash. No footprints in the dust. Adrian's voice came from ahead. "You good?" Maya answered. Yeah, but she didn't sound fully sure. They reached a spot where the cliff face opened into a steep set of natural steps. The sea was louder here, the sound of waves hitting stone like breathing. Maya filmed the descent in fragments. Her feet, the rock, Adrian's hand reaching back once to steady her. Then for a moment, she panned up, and the camera caught something in the distance. Not a person. Not an animal. Just a shape, half hidden behind a boulder near the waterline. Dark against pale stone. Maya's voice changed. Not fear. Not panic. More like curiosity with an edge. "Is that?" she said. Adrian didn't answer immediately. The video jumped, as if Maya had stopped recording and started again. Now they were lower, closer to the beach. The air looked damp. The lens had fogged slightly. Maya whispered, "Okay, that's weird." "What?" Adrian asked. Maya didn't respond. She turned the camera toward the boulder again. The shape was gone. The next cut showed Maya laughing again, forcing lightness into her tone. "False alarm," she said. "It's empty. It's literally just us." Adrian's voice, closer now, murmured, "Told you." They reached the sand. Maya filmed the water. She filmed her toes in the foam. She filmed Adrian throwing a rock, then walking out of frame. And then the vlog ended. No goodbye. No like and subscribe. Just a hard cut to black, as if the file had been trimmed mid-sentence. At the time, viewers assumed it was an editing choice, a stylistic thing. Maya had been experimenting with raw footage. But the people who knew her offline, her sister, her old roommate, the brand manager who handled her emails, would later say the same thing. Maya never left a video unfinished. 3 days after the upload, Adrian sent a single message from Maya's account. It was posted to her story, plain white text on a black background. "Taking a little break. No service where we are. Back soon." It vanished after 24 hours, like stories do, and in the moment it worked. People relaxed. They wrote, "Enjoy." They added heart emojis. They told her she deserved the rest. But a few watchers noticed something small. Maya always wrote in full sentences with punctuation. She used certain phrases. She over-explained. This message was blunt, efficient, unlike her, and it came after the unfinished video. Then her phone went silent again. When her sister, Lauren, tried calling the hotel in Lisbon, the front desk confirmed Maya and Adrian had checked out. They had left for the airport as planned. They hadn't returned. They hadn't called. When Lauren contacted the airline, she hit a wall of privacy rules. When she messaged Adrian directly, he didn't respond. By the 5th day, Lauren filed a missing person report. By the 6th, Detective Callum Reed was assigned. Callum had worked enough disappearances to know the pattern people hated hearing. Most missing adults are not missing for long. They either come back quickly or they don't come back at all. But Maya's case had one thing most cases didn't: a record. Hours of video, geotags, background conversations, a timeline of her final days, edited by the missing person herself. And that record, instead of making the search easier, made it stranger. Because somewhere in that last vlog, hidden between sunlight and laughter, was a moment that didn't fit. A half-seen shape behind a boulder, a fogged lens, a cut to black, and a message that didn't sound like Maya. Callum asked for every file, every raw clip, every draft, every scrap her channel had ever held. Because if Maya had disappeared and the world had watched her walking toward it, then the answer wasn't in a confession. It was in the footage. And the worst part was this: the footage was still online, still looping, still being watched, as if the disappearance hadn't ended the story, only paused it mid-breath. Chapter 2. Context and people. Before the vacation, Maya Kerr's life was unremarkable in the way that most stable lives are. She lived in a small apartment outside Manchester, close enough to the city to feel connected, far enough to feel quiet. Her neighbors knew her as polite, soft-spoken, the girl who carried a camera bag everywhere and always smiled in the stairwell. Online, she was more vivid. Her channel had started during university. At first it was study routines, cafe reviews, small trips taken on weekends. Over time, travel replaced textbooks. The audience grew slowly, organically. 30,000 subscribers after 4 years. Not viral, not famous, but loyal. Maya never chased drama. Brands liked her because she was predictable. Followers liked her because she felt real. She filmed mistakes, missed trains, rainy days. She kept awkward pauses in her edits. She talked about anxiety without framing it as a personality. That balance took effort. People close to her said the camera gave Maya structure, a way to explain herself without confrontation. When she filmed, she seemed more confident, more certain of where she stood. Adrian Cole entered her life 2 years before the disappearance. They met at a co-working space. Adrian worked in logistics, mostly remote. He was quiet, observant, the kind of person who listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, it was often practical. Their relationship never appeared dramatic on screen. Adrian wasn't a YouTube boyfriend. He didn't play to the lens. He didn't address the audience. He existed adjacent to the content, not inside it. At first, viewers barely noticed him. Then, gradually, he became familiar. His voice in the background, his reflection in mirrors, his hand passing her something just out of frame. Maya once joked in a Q&A, "He hates being filmed, which is probably why I trust him." That line aged badly. Offline, the relationship looked stable. Maya's sister had met Adrian several times. He was polite, reserved, a little guarded but not unfriendly. Lauren later told police that Adrian had a way of deflecting personal questions without refusing them outright. He answered just enough to satisfy curiosity, then changed the subject. It didn't feel suspicious at the time. Nothing did. In the weeks leading up to the vacation, Maya seemed lighter. She talked about burnout openly in a video titled "Why I Almost Quit." She said she felt trapped by her own schedule. That travel had become content instead of experience. "I want to remember places instead of just exporting them," she said. The comments were supportive. People told her to rest, to log off, to enjoy life offline. That encouragement mattered to her. The trip with Adrian was framed as a solution, a compromise. She would still vlog, but less. More handheld footage, fewer cuts. No pressure. She told her audience, "If I don't post every day, it's because I'm actually present." It was said with a smile, but there was relief underneath it. The planning details were vague. Maya mentioned Lisbon because it was easy. Cheap flights, walkable streets, good light. She didn't go into detail about the island they visited afterward. In one earlier video, someone asked in the comments where they were going next. Maya replied, "Somewhere Adrian knows." That was unusual. Maya normally researched obsessively. She loved maps. She loved knowing what was nearby. She loved planning. Letting someone else choose the destination was out of character. But she framed it as growth. "I'm learning to let go," she said. Not everything has to be optimized. Her audience praised that. Behind the scenes, her brand manager noticed small changes. Emails went unanswered longer than usual. Sponsorship drafts sat untouched. Maya canceled a call 2 days before the flight, saying she'd lost track of time. When asked later, the manager said it didn't feel alarming. "It felt like someone finally relaxing," she said. Like she trusted that things would wait for her. Maya's last conversation with her sister happened the night before the flight. They talked about packing, about whether Maya should bring a jacket she always forgot. Lauren remembered Maya sounding excited but distracted. "She kept pausing," Lauren said, like she was listening to someone in the room. Adrian was there. Lauren asked to speak to him. Maya passed the phone over. Adrian said hello, asked how Lauren was, said they'd be careful. When Lauren joked, "Don't kidnap her," Adrian laughed. "Wouldn't know where to hide her," he said. It was a normal joke. After the flight, Maya sent photos. The tram, the pastries, the view from the hotel window. She texted, "This place feels warm in a good way." Then the island. Communication slowed. That wasn't unusual on vacation, but the tone shifted. Messages were shorter, less descriptive. Lauren sent a voice note asking where exactly they were staying. Maya replied with a thumbs-up emoji and wrote, "I'll tell you later." Signal's weird. Lauren shrugged it off. Adrian's parents heard nothing unusual either. He sent a message saying they'd be offline for a few days. No one argued. No one pressed. That was the danger of it. Everything fit just well enough to avoid friction. Even the last story message, "Taking a little break. No service where we are?" Back soon was plausible on its own. It only became suspicious when paired with silence. When Detective Callum Reed began interviewing the people closest to Maya, a pattern emerged that bothered him. Everyone described her as careful. Not fearful. Careful. She double-checked doors. She shared her location when traveling alone. She told people where she was going, even when she didn't have to. Callum asked Lauren a simple question. If Maya lost signal, what would she normally do? Lauren answered immediately. She'd find it. That answer stayed with him. Because the island wasn't remote enough to vanish completely. Not in the modern sense. There were cell towers, emergency services, ferry schedules. People didn't just disappear there. And yet Maya had. Callum requested access to Maya's cloud storage. What he found wasn't chaos. It was order. Folders labeled by date. Raw clips neatly saved. Backup audio files. Location data embedded in metadata. Maya had documented everything. Except the end. The final vlog folder contained clips that never made it into the upload. Short recordings. Accidental takes. Moments she likely meant to delete. One clip was only 8 seconds long. It showed Maya standing still, camera lowered, breathing faster than normal. Off-screen, Adrian's voice said, "We don't have to film this." Maya replied, "I know. I just want to remember." The clip ended abruptly. Another file had no video at all. Just audio. Wind. Footsteps on gravel. Maya's voice quieter than usual. "This doesn't feel like a beach," she said. Adrian didn't answer. There was no timestamp after that. Callum replayed the audio several times. Not for what was said, for what wasn't. Because the silence on the other end of Maya's sentence felt intentional. And intention in disappearances matters more than panic. Callum closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. The vacation hadn't been an escape. It had been a narrowing. And whatever Maya walked toward on that island, she hadn't walked toward it alone. Tomorrow, Chapter 3. Escalation. Detective Callum Reed did not believe in instincts. He believed in accumulation. In his experience, disappearances rarely announced themselves. They revealed their shape slowly through repetition, through the way small details refused to align no matter how often you rearranged them. Maya Kerr's case resisted alignment from the start. Callum began where the public had already gone, the videos. He watched them without sound first, a habit he'd developed years earlier. Without dialogue, people revealed different truths. Body language, Pacing. The way someone moved through space when they thought they were in control. In the Lisbon footage, Maya moved freely. She wandered. She doubled back. She lingered on street corners just because the light looked good. She filled silence with small gestures, touching her hair, adjusting the camera strap, smiling at strangers who didn't know they were being filmed. On the island footage, that changed. Her movements were more linear, purposeful, less exploratory. She followed. Callum turned the sound back on. Adrian's voice was present in nearly every clip, but it was rarely directive. He didn't say, "Go here" or "Do this." He framed suggestions as observations. "This path looks faster. That market's probably closed. Signal might drop soon." Each sentence was reasonable on its own. Together, they formed a funnel. Callum noticed something else. Adrian rarely appeared surprised. When Maya reacted to things, the narrow road, the lack of signs, the absence of people, Adrian responded as if these were expected variables. Not alarming. Not reassuring. Just anticipated. Callum cross-referenced timestamps with location metadata. The last confirmed GPS data placed Maya's phone near the northern coast of the island, several kilometers from the nearest marked beach. The area was accessible but not maintained. Local authorities described it as known but unofficial. Fishermen used parts of it. Hikers passed through occasionally. There were no warnings because there had been no incidents worth recording. Until now. Callum contacted island police. They were cooperative but unprepared. Maya's face was familiar to some of them, not because they followed her, but because her disappearance had brought attention. They hadn't handled a case with this level of online documentation before. "It feels like we're late," one officer said, like it already happened somewhere else. Search teams retraced the path from the cliffside steps seen in the vlog. They found footprints. 2 sets, one lighter, one heavier. Both led down. Only one set led back up. The heavier one. Adrian Cole's passport records showed he left the island 2 days after Maya's last upload. He departed alone. The reason he gave at the airport was simple. "She stayed behind," he said. "Needed more time." No one questioned him. Why would they? Adults are allowed to separate. Adults are allowed to choose. But when Callum tracked Adrian's movements after the island, the pattern fractured. Adrian didn't return to Manchester. He flew to Brussels, then took a train to Cologne, then disappeared into a network of short-term rentals booked under variations of his name. Not illegal, not dramatic, just evasive. Callum requested a warrant for Adrian's devices. What they recovered was partial. Adrian's phone had been wiped 3 times in the last month. Factory resets spaced just far enough apart to appear accidental. His laptop was encrypted, but Maya's cloud account told a different story. She had synced automatically. Callum found an unposted clip dated the morning of Day 3, no plans. Maya was filming herself in the bathroom mirror. Her face looked tired. "This sounds stupid," she said quietly, "but I feel like I'm borrowing this place." She laughed, then stopped. "Adrian says it's just nerves." There was a pause. "He always says that." The clip ended. Callum played it again. Maya didn't sound afraid. She sounded uncertain. Uncertainty, Callum knew, was often the last honest emotion before someone deferred to another person's confidence. Another clip showed Adrian adjusting the backpack straps before the hike. Maya asked, "How do you know this way?" Adrian answered, "Someone online posted about it." "Who?" "A guy." "Doesn't matter." Maya hesitated, then nodded. Callum leaned back. "Someone online." The phrase appeared again when he reviewed Maya's messages. In the days before the trip, Adrian had sent links. Forums, travel threads, long comment chains from anonymous accounts discussing quiet places and unmarked access points. Maya hadn't engaged much in those conversations. Adrian had. Callum subpoenaed the forum data. Most of it was harmless. People sharing locations they didn't want overrun. A culture of secrecy framed as preservation, but buried in the replies was a username that appeared repeatedly, offering private directions. Coordinates sent via direct message. Warnings framed as reassurance. Not dangerous if you know what to expect. Adrian had saved those messages. Maya had not. Search teams expanded their efforts. They combed the shoreline below the cliffs. They checked the water. They found nothing. No clothing. No equipment. No camera. No phone. Callum interviewed Adrian's parents. They described their son as independent. Private. Not close but not distant. When asked about the vacation, his mother frowned. He said Maya needed space, she said. I assumed he meant emotional. Callum asked a final question. Did Adrian ever talk about filming? About online attention? His father shook his head. He hated it, he said. Said people confuse being seen with being known. Callum wrote that down. Because someone who understands that difference can use it. As days turned into weeks, the internet filled the absence. Viewers dissected frames, enhanced shadows, slowed audio, built theories from pixels and breaths. They argued over the shape behind the boulder. They argued over Adrian's tone. They argued over Maya's final smile. None of them could agree. But Callum noticed something consistent. The more people watched the footage, the less they talked about Maya as a person. She became a sequence, a mystery, content. And somewhere in that shift, Callum realized the case had crossed a line. Maya Kerr had not just gone missing. She had been documented into disappearance. And the escalation wasn't only what happened on the island. It was what happened after. Because every view pulled the footage further from truth and closer to spectacle. And if Adrian, or anyone else, had counted on that distraction, then the real crime wasn't hidden. It was diluted. Chapter 4. The Turning Point. The turning point did not come with a confession. It came with weather. 3 weeks after Maya Kerr vanished, a storm system moved across the island. Heavy rain, strong coastal wind, the kind that forces the sea to give back what it has been holding. On the second morning after the storm, a local fisherman called authorities. He had found something lodged between rocks near the base of the cliffs, not far from the unmarked beach. It was a camera, not intact. The casing was cracked. Salt had eaten into the seams, but the memory card was still inside. When Detective Callum Reed was notified, he did not allow himself to hope. Experience had taught him that hope makes evidence louder than it is. Still, when the card was delivered to the temporary command office on the island, he personally inserted it into a right-protected reader. There were files. Most were corrupted. Static, half frames. Audio without image. But one clip opened cleanly. It was not long. 2 minutes and 11 seconds. The camera angle was wrong. Too low. Tilted slightly, as if it had been set down in a hurry rather than held. The image showed stone and sky. The sound of wind was constant, overwhelming. Then Maya's voice entered the frame. Not the calm, conversational tone her viewers knew. Not panic either. Strain. Okay, she said, breathing hard. Just wait. A pause. Footsteps on rock. Adrian's voice followed, closer than before. I told you not to bring it. Maya answered. I know. I want proof. Of what? Adrian asked. Maya didn't reply immediately. The camera shifted slightly. The image caught part of her leg, scraped, a thin line of blood running down toward her ankle. Of where I am, she said. Of what you said this place was. Adrian exhaled sharply. You're overthinking. No, Maya said. I'm finally thinking. The wind rose, swallowing part of the audio. Callum leaned closer to the screen. Maya's voice came back, quieter but firmer. You said this beach was empty, she said. You said people came here. Adrian replied. They do. Sometimes. When? Maya asked. Another pause. Not like this, Adrian said. The camera shook. Maya must have picked it up because the frame tilted upward. For a second, the lens caught Adrian's face fully. It was the first time Callum saw him without filters, without partial framing. Adrian did not look angry. He looked annoyed. Not at Maya. At the situation. You don't trust me, Adrian said. Maya laughed once, breathless. This isn't about trust. This is about me not recognizing where I am. Adrian stepped closer to the camera. You wanted to stop being content, he said. This is what that looks like. Maya's voice wavered, but she didn't back down. I wanted rest, she said. Not whatever this is. There was movement off frame. The sound of rock shifting. Maya gasped. "Adrian, wait!" The camera dropped. The image spun, then landed face up. The sky filled the frame. Pale, empty. Adrian's voice came from somewhere above the lens. "Don't make this harder," he said. Maya's breathing grew faster. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. "I just want to leave." Together. Now. Silence. Longer this time. Then Adrian spoke again. "I didn't plan for you to change your mind," he said. Those words settled in Callum's chest like weight. Because they implied something worse than impulse. They implied expectation. Maya's voice was very small when she answered. "You planned something." Adrian didn't deny it. Instead, he said, "You were always going to disappear eventually." "You said it yourself." The wind surged again. The microphone struggled. Maya said something, but only fragments carried through. "My words. That's not consent." A sharp sound cut through the audio. Stone against stone. The camera jolted violently. The image blurred. Maya cried out. Then the clip ended. No final frame. No resolution. Just corrupted data and silence. Callum removed the memory card and sat back. No one spoke in the room. The island police chief finally broke the silence. "Is that enough?" he asked quietly. Callum shook his head. "It tells us what happened," he said. Not where. But something had changed. Until that moment, Maya's disappearance had lived in ambiguity. Possibility. The space where people argue about accidents and misunderstandings. Now there was intent. Now there was a moment where Maya had recognized danger and named it. And that moment had been recorded. Callum issued an international warrant for Adrian Cole. This time, there was no ambiguity in the language. Suspicion of homicide. Evidence of premeditation. But even as the legal machinery accelerated, something else was happening. The clip leaked. Not officially. Not through police. Someone inside the island's municipal office had recorded the screen during playback. A reflection. A partial image. Enough. Within hours, fragments appeared online. Not the full video. Just the lines. "I didn't plan for you to change your mind. You were always going to disappear eventually." They spread faster than context ever could. People argued about tone, about meaning, about whether Adrian meant emotional disappearance, digital disappearance, a break from the internet. They slowed the footage, enhanced it, debated whether Maya's cry was from fear or pain. Callum watched the discourse with growing unease. Because the turning point of the case, the moment Maya asserted herself, the moment Adrian revealed expectation, was being consumed the same way her vlogs had been. As material, as something to watch, Maya had found her voice at the end, and the world was still deciding what it meant. Toruchi. Chapter 5. Fallout and Discovery. The clip from the memory card changed the tempo of everything. Before it surfaced, Maya Kerr's disappearance had been treated like a missing persons case with unusual visibility. The kind of case where detectives field calls from strangers, where tips flood in from people who have never met the missing, where the public thinks attention is the same thing as progress. After the clip, the tone hardened. Callum Reed watched the island police department shift from cautious to defensive in a single day. Patrol officers who had been polite to reporters began refusing questions. A supervisor taped paper over a window in the temporary command office because camera lenses kept finding it. The mayor's office issued a statement about respecting due process, the kind of sentence that exists mostly to stop people from asking whether anyone is already responsible. And online, the clip became a weapon. It was cut into 15-second segments, turned into reaction content, placed over dramatic music, slowed down so viewers could study Adrian's face when he said, "I didn't plan for you to change your mind." In the original recording, his voice was not booming. It wasn't theatrical. It was practical, almost bored. That was what made it chilling. Maya's sister Lauren Kerr begged platforms to remove it. Some complied, others didn't. A few removed one upload and left 10 more copies untouched because moderation works like that. It is clean on paper and chaotic in practice. Lauren stopped looking at the internet entirely. But it was impossible to escape the consequences of what the internet had already done. Her phone filled with strangers demanding updates. Some were kind. Some were angry. Some accused her of hiding information for views, as if grief was a marketing strategy. One message read, she wanted to disappear. Let her. Lauren showed that one to Callum in the station lobby, hands shaking. Callum didn't respond immediately. He looked at the words and felt the familiar fatigue that comes when a case becomes entertainment. He had seen it before, but never this intensely. Maya had built a parasocial community around herself, and now that community felt entitled to her ending. That entitlement became noise. Callum needed signal. He returned to the evidence that didn't care about opinion: travel records, booking histories, device traces, camera metadata. Adrian Cole's movements after the island were no longer merely odd. Now they looked like a deliberate attempt to erode a trail. The short-term rentals were booked through third-party services, paid with prepaid cards purchased in different cities. The card purchases themselves were legal but patterned. A person trying to disappear does not repeat mistakes. Adrian repeated just enough to stay human while still staying out of reach. Callum worked with Europol contacts. Requests went out. Responses came back slow. Borders are porous for travelers and rigid for investigators. Then finally something useful appeared. A hotel camera in Cologne captured Adrian entering late at night, carrying a backpack and a hard case. Not luggage. Equipment. The hard case was the kind photographers use for lenses or drones with foam inserts. Adrian checked in under A, Cole, and paid in cash. The clerk remembered him because he asked a strange question. "Is there a service entrance?" Adrian had asked. The clerk said yes. Adrian asked if it was monitored. The clerk said yes. Adrian asked if the cameras were live or recording only. That question, the clerk said, made his stomach tighten. Callum replayed that interview twice. Not for the words, but for the expression the clerk used when he said tighten. People know when they are being tested. They just don't always listen to themselves. A second hit came from Maya's own channel. 2 days after the leak, a new upload appeared. No title. No thumbnail. Just a black frame and a timestamp. The platform flagged it as scheduled, but no one could find a schedule entry in Maya's creator dashboard. Her password had already been changed by her family. Two-factor authentication had been locked down, and yet the upload was there. Callum had the file downloaded before it could be removed. It was 27 seconds long. The screen remained black. No image. Audio only. Wind. Faint surf. A distant metallic clink. Then a voice. Maya's voice. Soft, measured, almost calm. "If you're watching this," she said, "it means he wanted you to." A pause. "Don't make me a story." The clip ended. No explanation. No date. No metadata that could confirm when it was recorded. But Callum felt something in his chest shift anyway. Maya's voice, even in those few seconds, was unmistakable. Her cadence. Her breath. The way she shaped consonants. It wasn't an AI imitation. It wasn't stitched from old clips. If it was fake, it was made by someone who had spent hours studying her. That possibility made Callum's skin go cold. He convened a small meeting. Island police, cyber specialists, a prosecutor on video link, and Lauren. Lauren listened with her arms wrapped around herself, as if hugging her own ribs could keep her from splitting. Callum laid out the facts. "The new upload did not come from your device," he told her. "It came from the platform side, which means either someone still has access, or someone exploited a vulnerability, or someone on the inside is helping." Lauren stared at him. "So he's still controlling her channel." Callum didn't correct the phrasing. Control was the point. The prosecutor asked the question everyone avoided. "Do we believe Maya is alive?" Silence filled the room. Callum answered carefully. "We believe Maya's voice was recorded at some point after the island. We do not yet know how long after. We do not yet know under what conditions." Lauren's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "That's not an answer." "It's the closest honest one I have," Callum said. The island police chief shifted uncomfortably. "This is turning into a spectacle." "It already is," Lauren said, and her voice was flat with disgust. "He's using her like content because that's what she was to everyone." No one argued. Callum left the meeting with one priority: find the origin of the 27-second file. Cyber analysts extracted what they could. There was no GPS, no camera model, no device signature. But the audio held small details. A repeating mechanical pulse in the background, steady, low. Not waves, not wind. A pump. That pointed toward an industrial environment, not a beach. Another detail, a faint automated announcement barely audible beneath the surf sound effect. A tone that sounded like a transit system. They cleaned it, amplified it. A robotic voice in English said, "Doors closing." Callum stared at the waveform, then at the map. "Train station," he said. "Not on the island. Not remote. Somewhere with people, cameras, schedules. Someone could record a hostage message in a crowded city if they knew how to hide in plain sight. If they knew that no one looks closely when they assume the story is happening elsewhere." The next day, Lauren received an email from an unknown address. No greeting. One sentence. "Stop telling them to stop watching." Attached was a photo. Maya's passport. Open to the photo page. A gloved hand holding it in front of a blurred background that looked like tiled walls. Lauren forwarded it to Callum within minutes. Callum examined the image. The tiles were distinctive, large, glossy, pale green. The kind used in certain older European metro stations. The lighting was harsh and overhead. He zoomed in on the reflection in the passport's laminate. A smear of color. Red. Not blood. Something like paint. Callum felt his jaw tighten. "Adrian," he whispered. Because this wasn't random stalking. This was sustained stage control. Someone was feeding Lauren proof in small doses, like keeping a fire alive without letting it burn out. Callum pushed the task force harder. He requested Metro CCTV logs from several cities Adrian had passed through. He asked for footage from service corridors, not platforms. He tracked prepaid card purchases near transit hubs. He began mapping where a person could record a voice in a station without being noticed. Progress came the way it often does in cases like this, through a mistake. A train ticket purchase under Adrian's real email address. It was an old email, rarely used. Perhaps he thought it was dead. Perhaps he thought no one would check. Perhaps he simply slipped. The ticket was for a late-night route from Cologne to Brussels. Callum coordinated with Belgian authorities. They set surveillance at the arrival platforms and at the service entrances. They watched the staff corridors. They watched the maintenance doors. At 2:41 a.m., a man matching Adrian's description stepped off the train. He wore a baseball cap pulled low, a mask, medical style, common enough to be invisible, a backpack and a hard case. He didn't look around like a fugitive. He walked like someone with a plan. He moved toward a staff-only door. A plainclothes officer followed at distance, waiting for the moment to close the net. Adrian swiped a keycard. The door opened. That was the moment they moved. But as officers approached, Adrian did something that made even experienced professionals hesitate. He raised his phone. Not to call, to film. The light from the screen briefly illuminated his eyes. He said calmly to the camera, "You're all watching." Then he ran. The chase that followed was not cinematic. It was frantic and ugly. Adrian disappeared into a service corridor that forked into maintenance tunnels beneath the station. Officers followed, boots splashing through shallow water, radios crackling, breath loud in confined concrete. They caught him 2 minutes later, pinned against a metal gate. The hard case fell open. Inside, foam inserts held a camera mount, spare batteries, a compact microphone, and a second phone. On its screen, a paused recording interface. At the top, a viewer count field that was blank, as if waiting to be filled. Lauren's phone rang while Callum was still processing the arrest. The caller ID showed Maya's number. Callum answered on speaker, expecting a trap. There was only breathing. Then, very softly, Maya's voice. "Lauren," she said. Lauren collapsed into a chair, a sound leaving her throat that wasn't words. Maya whispered, "I'm sorry." Callum leaned closer to the phone. "Maya, this is Detective Reed. Where are you?" Silence. Then a faint metallic pulse, steady, like before. A pump. Maya spoke again, and her voice sounded far away, as if she was speaking through a wall. "He told me not to say," she whispered. Callum's stomach tightened. "Who told you?" Maya didn't answer. The line went dead. In the room, no one celebrated. They had Adrian. But they did not have mShe. And the most honest part of Callum's job was admitting what that meant. If Adrian could be arrested while mShe remained hidden, then the disappearance was not just about one man. It was about a structure, a method, a way of turning a person's life into footage, and then using that footage to keep everyone chasing the wrong thing. Callum stared at the second phone from the hard case. The paused recording interface stared back, as if the story was still waiting for its next upload. Tucker Chapter 6. The ending. Adrian Cole was processed in Brussels under bright station lights that made everyone look tired and slightly unreal. He didn't resist after they caught him. He didn't cry. He didn't beg. He sat in the interview room with his hands folded on the table as if he was waiting for a delayed train. Detective Callum Reed flew in that same day. When he entered the room, Adrian looked up calmly, almost politely. His eyes were clear. No visible rage. No frantic desperation. Only a tight, controlled patience. Callum began the way he always began, with the simple facts delivered without drama. mShe Kerr is missing, Callum said. You traveled with her. You left the island alone. You wiped your devices. We recovered her camera card. We have your voice in the final minutes. Adrian listened as if Callum were reading a weather report. When Callum finished, Adrian nodded once. Yes, he said. That single word did not sound like confession. It sounded like acknowledgement. Callum kept his voice steady. Where is she? Adrian's mouth twitched, not into a smile, but into something that looked like someone holding back irritation. You already know what happened, Adrian said. The clip gave you that. So you're not really asking where she is. You're asking whether you can undo it. Callum leaned forward slightly. Where is mShe? Adrian looked down at his own hands. She didn't want to be content anymore, he said quietly. She said it. On camera. 100 times in different words. Callum felt a cold anger rise. People say things. That doesn't give you ownership of their ending. Adrian's eyes lifted again. I didn't own her, he said. I curated her. Callum didn't react, but something in him tightened at the word curated. You curated her into a missing person, Callum said. Adrian shrugged. Small. Controlled. Everyone did, he replied. Callum watched his face closely. Who else was involved? For the first time, Adrian's expression shifted. A flicker of annoyance, then containment. No one, he said too quickly. Callum waited. Adrian exhaled slowly. Fine. There were people online. People who like stories. People who like to feel ahead of the truth. Callum's stomach tightened. The forum. Adrian didn't deny it. They called it preservation, Adrian said. Secret places, secret access points, the romance of being somewhere unspoiled. It's just control, dressed up as taste. Callum asked, Did they tell you to hurt her? Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly. They didn't tell me anything, he said. They suggested, they framed. They asked questions that feel like choices. Callum asked again, softer, precise. Where is she? Adrian looked past Callum toward the blank wall. She's somewhere quiet, he said. Somewhere no one can watch her. The answer sounded like a lie designed to hurt. Callum stood abruptly. We're done. Hold him. Full digital forensics. Every contact. Every key. Every account. We treat this as a network until proven otherwise. Callum's team cracked Adrian's second phone that evening. Not fully, but enough. The interface wasn't a public streaming platform. It was a private broadcast tool, custom-coded, stripped down, designed to push content to a closed audience through rotating addresses. No followers, no public comments, just an audience that had to be invited, and a set of scheduled uploads. One of them was highlighted, a draft titled Day 4, The Real Disappearance. The timestamp was set for the following night at 2:17 a.m. Callum stared at the screen. He ordered a quiet operation. No press, no announcements. If an audience existed, he didn't want to feed it. They traced the draft's upload route through servers and relays. The trail scattered across jurisdictions, but it had a rhythm. Every relay bounced through transit hubs, stations, underground corridors with public Wi-Fi, places where a person could blend into crowds. At 2:10 a.m., nothing happened. At 2:15, network traffic spiked briefly, then vanished. At 2:17, a maintenance door on the lower level opened. A worker stepped through in standard rail overalls, hood up, carrying a rolling toolbox. Callum followed at distance as the worker moved into a service corridor. The worker stopped at a concrete alcove where a sump pump hummed, steady and low. He set down the toolbox. He pulled out a phone. Callum signaled his team. 2 officers moved in from behind. "Police," one said. "Hands where we can see them." The worker froze. Slowly, he raised both hands. The hood slipped back slightly. It wasn't Adrian. It was a younger man, early 20s. Blank expression, ordinary enough to vanish in a crowd. Callum stepped closer. "Who are you?" The young man blinked slowly. "I'm just uploading," he said. Callum's voice hardened. "Uploading what?" The young man tilted his head. "A story," he said. The officers cuffed him. Another grabbed the phone. The screen was live. The draft had been initiated. A black frame. A loading icon. And then audio. Maya's breathing. Callum felt his chest tighten. Maya spoke in a low, controlled whisper. Not calm. Contained. "If you're hearing this," she said, "it means he still thinks you want me." A pause. "You don't know me," she continued. "You know the version that fit in a frame." Her voice steadied with determination. "I'm not your mystery," she said. "I'm not your ending. Stop watching." The audio cut. The screen remained black. A single line of text appeared. "Where do you look next?" Callum stared at it. That was the trick. Not just making people watch, but making them chase. Turning law enforcement into performers too. Always reacting. Always racing a clock set by someone else. Callum ordered the phone powered down and sealed. He looked at the young man again. "Where is she?" The young man swallowed. "I don't know," he said. "They don't tell us that." "Who is they?" Callum demanded. "Mods," the young man said quietly. "Handlers. Whatever you call them." Callum felt the truth settle. Adrian was not the only one. He was the boyfriend because the boyfriend gives access. The boyfriend gives plausibility. The boyfriend makes the disappearance feel like a relationship problem before it feels like a crime. But the structure behind him, the people who fed him, rewarded him, taught him how to frame it, could keep going without him. They had already begun. The next 48 hours were warrants, raids, coordination, and dead ends. Accounts deleted themselves. Servers went dark. Phones were wiped remotely. A network built on anonymity did what anonymous networks do when touched by light. It fractured. And still, Maya was not found. Not alive, not dead, not confirmed anywhere. Lauren returned to Manchester with statements and a body that moved like it had forgotten how. She sat in Maya's apartment one evening, surrounded by familiar objects that now felt like props. The tripod by the window, the ring light on the shelf, the passport drawer left half open. Lauren told Callum something that stayed with him. "It feels like she's everywhere," she said. "But she isn't anywhere," Callum understood. Because Maya's presence had been distributed, uploaded, fragmented, turned into something you could replay without permission. The final development came quietly. No dramatic call. No new upload. Just an email to Callum's secure address, sent from a dead account, routed through enough relays to make tracing pointless. The message contained only 2 things: a sentence and a file. The sentence read, "You can arrest a man, but you can't arrest an audience." The file was a video, from a place that looked like a small room with plain walls and soft daylight. Maya sat at a table, no restraints visible, hair shorter, face thinner, eyes fixed on the lens with exhaustion that felt earned. She spoke without tremor. "I'm alive," she said. Maya continued. "I don't know how long this will stay up," she said. "I don't know who will see it. But if you're here because you care, then I need you to do something that feels wrong." She inhaled slowly. "Stop searching for entertainment inside it," she said. "Stop sharing clips. Stop asking for the full story. Every time you do, you feed the thing that took me." A pause. "Adrian didn't create this," she said. "He joined it." Maya leaned closer, voice lowering. "If you want to help," she said, "don't watch. Report. Shut doors. Don't become the audience. She sat back. For the first time, she added, I want to be missing from you. The video ended. No location. No timestamp. No metadata. Just Maya's face, then black. Callum forwarded it to Lauren. Lauren watched it once, then again, then broke down in a way that made every officer in the room look away out of respect. The case never closed. Adrian Cole was convicted on related charges, unlawful imprisonment, evidence tampering, conspiracy, enough to put him away for decades. But without Maya's body, without a confirmed crime scene, the legal ending was incomplete. Months later, Maya's channel remained online. Not because her family wanted it. Because the internet doesn't let go. A year after her disappearance, a new upload appeared. No thumbnail. No title. Just a black frame. It was only 5 seconds long. A faint mechanical hum in the background like a pump. Then a single line of text in white. Stop watching me. That was the last thing Maya Kerr ever posted. And maybe that was the most honest ending she could claim. Not closure. Not justice. A boundary. A refusal. A reminder that the most dangerous part of a disappearance isn't always the moment someone vanishes. Sometimes it's what the rest of us do with the void they leave behind. If you stayed until the end, thank you for listening. If you want to support Midnight Fatal Cases, consider subscribing. And if this story stayed with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Your honest opinion matters. Until next time, stay aware,